All right. Hey everybody, how are we doing today? Okay. Today I'm talking about something that I am personally very excited to talk about. It has been the talk of the town this recent year because of some changes done with D&D, but also just a topic that I think is important if you're developing or interested in your own TTRPG. Twin, glad you could make it. Today we're talking about races. The reason I put in quotes is because we're gonna get into that, but that doesn't make a lot of sense in the way we're talking about it here. And of course, what I'm talking about are what are known as fantasy races, right? Which would be like your elves, your orcs, all that fun jazz. But as a lot of people have pointed out, that doesn't make a ton of sense because I don't know about you, but I don't think orc and someone in like Italian count as the same type of different type of human, because it's not. An orc is not a human. So for that reason and many other reasons relating to it's D&D is an old game, and it set these standards, these terms a long time ago, back when people might be more okay with it, which I'm glad to say that we as a society have evolved from that and have enough self-awareness to know, like, hey, let's not call these these things races because that doesn't make any sense. So D&D has changed it to species, which personally I am a-okay with. So we were just talking about the term race. Oh man, one second, let me change something real quick. Sorry, I jumped right into discussion. I feel like I have to because normally I don't go live very often, but Twin, how you feeling? Anyone else in the chat, how you feeling? What's your favorite species or race in TTRPGs or just media in general? Hot take, mine probably, I honestly think mine's probably elves. I think it's just because of Legolas, honestly. He really did it for me. Let me see. Dun, dun. I've grown to like the term ancestry. Ancestry's good, which makes total sense too. Really good. Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with calling it ancestry. SMR are hard to beat for me. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, they're angels and it's sick. So sick, dude. That's a good pick. I cannot fault you for that. For me, it's I've always been a sucker. Okay, yeah, I got it. I fixed it. Look at that. We're getting better, guys. So yeah, for me, it's I like the classics. I like favorite species. Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm putting that up here. I'm realizing how difficult it is to spell that one. I've always liked, there's a species in Brandon Sanderson's books, which they call them singers, because it's basically there's humans, and then there is this other creature, which kind of resemble orcs in a way, but they're called singers, and they basically have this carapace, this like hard shell on their skin, and the thing about them is they can change, and they can become different forms, is what they call them. And it's such a cool concept. So they'll have like one form that's mainly for battle, and they're like much more armored, and they're much bigger, and there's one that's like for more like like being like servants in the community or whatever, or like workers, and they'll be a lot lighter, a lot more nimble. That's a sick concept. So I'm gonna put and speaking of which, I hope that I saw the Brandon Sanderson, the Cosmere RPG, and I almost bought it on the spot. But I wait until Christmas because someone is probably gonna get it for me because they know how much I like that. But I saw it in Barnes & Noble. I like that. Star Trek has one of my absolute favorite sci-fi species, the Trill. Oh yeah? I'm not super familiar with Star Trek, so I'm gonna look this one up actually. Trill. Star Trek. Star Trek is actually super underrated. Let's see. They look very humanoid, but I know they're aliens because it's in Star Trek. They didn't have the technology to make anything crazy when they probably first invented them. The Trill in Star Trek, let me see, have a symbiotic relationship with the sentient. Oh, sweet. So they have a, like, it's not just them, it's also something that's inside them that they're like communicating with. They have telepathic abilities. That's pretty sick. Yeah, absolutely. And that would definitely count as its own species. That's sick. I love it whenever someone takes something and makes it really weird so that it's interesting, you know, like the singers, like they change throughout it. That's a weird thing. You know, the Trill, they're able to communicate with this other part of them, which to them might seem completely normal, but to us, obviously, we're going to be like, okay, what are you talking about? I love that. So we already talked about better terms. And, you know, when making a TTRPG or discussing it, it's good to be aware of the other terms that are used. Obviously, species is one of them. Then ancestry. Pretty sure I misspelled that. Yes, I did. It brings an amalgam of personalities to its previous host. Oh, really? That is very interesting. These are all ideas that I want to be like inspired by when creating, I guess, the species or races, if you want to call them that, in this game. That is so cool. So it's not, the Trill itself is not like the body of the human. It's that symbiote that's inhabiting that host. And every time it gets passed on to another host, it becomes, yeah, a combination of those personalities. That is sick. I love working with that kind of stuff in the mind. Let's be, memory. Combining host. Or symbiote. That is sick. I love that. And I love playing with those mind kind of stuff. And I'll tell you about some inspiration I've had, but I had some ideas for some species. But first I want to talk about one thing that can be a little iffy in this community and just in fantasy in general, which is, what about evil species? Huh? What about it? Can they be evil? What's your thought? What are your thoughts on that? There are many children that aren't bound. Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, I see. So the Trill itself isn't necessarily just a symbiote. It can be other things too. I like that. The fact that they made it a part of its like culture, and you said it's for political reasons. Oh, that's sick. That's how you know you made a good species, right? If it's influencing the culture in those creative ways. The same thing like magic systems, because I guess you could say the Trill's symbiotic, you know, telekinetic stuff it does would be its own type of magic system. and the fact that it's integrating with the way they operate on a societal level, always appreciated. See, don't sleep on Star Trek, you know? They got some good stuff. Okay, so I wanted to address what an evil species is, because for a long time orcs were like the evil species, right? Goblins were the evil species, you know? They're irredeemable. To their core, they are just bad. And you know, in Lord of the Rings, they have some ways to go about this. Like, literally, the Uruk-hai are created in, like, these egg things, like, by Saruman. But then we watched Rings of Power, and we find out, oh, wait a minute, orcs can have families? And they can, like, be concerned about their wife and child? Well, that kind of affects, I guess, the point, like, you as the watcher, because, like, oh, we kind of wanted all these things to die, but now it's like, oh, now I feel bad? Interesting relationship there. But here's the thing. I also feel it can be a tricky situation if you make a species irredeemable and evil for the sake of it, just because. Pros: a constant villain and threat. Also, you're gonna have a let's see, gore with no guilt, right? You're not gonna feel bad if they blow up you know, all these orcs or goblins because they're just evil, right? Those are some pros. Some cons: you'll have a they will be unplayable normally, and if they are playable, you have to have a really good reason why. But here's the thing, you know, a lot of these creatures are playable in D&D. And I think that if you cut off certain species, you have to have a reason, you know, in the narrative to not allow the players to be that. I don't know. Even if you don't want them to. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, it's it really is it can be a tricky situation, but overall, that's the only con I can really think of as far as having. I mean, obviously, you don't want to like make a species like I'm Puerto Rican, right? If someone made a Puerto Rican-esque society and said these are all the bad guys, I'd be pretty pissed off, right? Anyone would. So you got to really make sure it stays in the species category, right? You got to make sure that it is so far removed from something that could possibly be offensive to one of the players or someone that's reviewing the RPG or anything like that. That's why I think it was actually a good call that orcs became a playable character and not necessarily just a bad species in D&D. And that's my take on that. I think that was a good thing that it was integrated into that. They gave them their own culture that wasn't just being brutes and having these, you know, these tribes. That I think it was overall a great thing. Anyway, in case any of you guys were wondering about that. But here's the thing. That's the reason I'm talking about this, because I'm going to talk about my own species that I'm working on right now. And one of them is very normally evil, but it's also playable. Right? So it does not fall in this category truly, and I'll talk about why. Like demons. Yeah, listen. Oh, yeah. They're all outside of humanity and fixtures of the verse. Yes, it totally is. Because, yeah, a demon is quite literally the embodiment of evil, right? You know, no one's going to ask a question like, oh yeah, why are you calling, that why are you calling that mythical embodiment of just everything wrong with the universe? You're calling them evil? Okay. It's like, yeah, they literally are, and they're okay with it, you know? But I think you're always in the safe if you just go for whatever you want to go for and you commit in a way that doesn't make it seem like you're targeting a person, right? So as far as races go, they should not be a factor in the morality of a character. Unless it's a species that's so far removed in a way that no one is going to acknowledge that, like, are you making some kind of statement by creating this, right? With that said, let's talk about origins. So origins are the type of ancestry or species or race, whatever you want to call it, in this game that I'm working on right now. And I'm very excited to talk about it. Because I know a lot of games like have like a ton of different choices when it comes to, species. I personally, I like it when it's just one that you can focus on. So let's real quick open that up to discussion. You know how many species and races D&D has? Like, I tried to look up a list earlier. I was getting overwhelmed by how many they had. Not all of them are super readily available for players to play, but dude, so many. Like, arguably too many. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all this information? Yeah, you can be whatever you want, but, right, if all your demons were living in Vietnamese society, it would be weird, problematic, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, yeah, the trolls, they speak Vietnamese. It's like, hold up, why? Why do they end? Yeah, exactly. That's why it's like, maybe try to like stray away from any type of accent or language adjacent to any human language in general when trying to roleplay as these creatures, right? If someone presented like an incomprehensible, form of evil and it had an Italian accent, I'd be like, what? What are you trying to say? Oh, man. That's great. Good stuff. But I guess if you're my co-host, Michael, you would be A-okay with that. If you're my co-host from Dicecast, he might join later, so I'll try not to talk trash about him the whole time. But, okay. The number of species, right? How many does D&D have? I'm going to put you over here. I'm just going to look up how many playable species in D&D. I'm just curious. Oh my goodness. Okay, there's 9 in the core 5th edition, right? 9. That's totally fine. Even that, I'm like, that's a good bit. That's a hefty bunch, and you're gonna have plenty to choose from as a player. But there's over 180 when including every official race and sub-race. That's wild. Now, that might be including like other like unplayable races and species, but even still, that's a lot. So let's go ahead. That's a lot. Now, however, in the Cosmere, there are 2. I don't know why I typed out that sentence. Cosmere, there are only 2 to pick from, right? So, and I think there's a right way to go about this. Personally, for me, I prefer less personally. How many do you prefer? Twin, let me know if you have a preference. Anyone else watching? Do you like to have a lot of options of species when you're in the character creation process, right? Personally, I'm the kind of guy that gets a little overwhelmed. I made a video that's going to come out next week, probably, talking about classes and how a lot of them can kind of overwhelm you. That's me. I am not one for being paralyzed by choice. I'd rather have a couple really good quality ones, even like a subspecies, right? Something that you can customize later, but it starts off as something, that you already, out of a few picks. I don't know. Like if you chose a species and you picked, human, and then, I guess then you could pick a race, because that would be a way you could go about that. I really like those slime things you can consume or repurpose bodies and keep. Oh, yes. What is that called? That slime thing. I know what you're talking about. And those are really cool. And that's kind of a cheat code too, isn't it? Because you can have it and you can like possess a certain body. It can be any type of body as long as it's humanoid. Let's see. D&D slime species. I forget what it's called. I literally watched a video. I watched a video recently about it, and I was like, that's one of the coolest things ever. Plasmoid, that's it. I'm putting that in the list, because I like those so much. Good pull. Good pull, Twin. Plasmoid. Oops. Let's see. It is a shape-shifting blob. I love versatility and like the fact its very nature comes with a certain ability, and you can even draw assumptions of what you could do in the world. Yeah. Okay, but as far as number, Twin, you say number, hard for me to say. I like a handful. Yeah. Like a couple to pick from, you don't want to be, in a dead end. Like, I would love it if the Cosmere had a couple more choices that, were just as high quality. But a lot of times, people are afraid to commit to just a few, so they'll make tons. And in a way, sacrifice quality for quantity. A lot of people do it really well, and I do appreciate that, but I've seen in the past how people might sacrifice that. There's something like a Plasmoid and Mistborn. I haven't read them yet. I haven't read those ones yet. But I'm excited to find out about that. That makes me want to read it even more. It's literally on my Christmas wish list. Oh. Love it. Okay, so. I might as well go ahead and let y'all know that I'm thinking about calling the game that I'm working on now. I said last stream how I was going to be like a second version of Trichonomus, but really it's changed so much. I'm like, it's a different game now. And it has different... I basically tore it down and said, okay, let's just start from scratch in the way that I think is the correct way to do that. If you want to hear more about that, check out not last stream, but the stream before this. We'll talk about how I went about that, the process of that. So, I'm thinking about calling this one Discovery, which is simple, but I wanted to really get the point across of what the purpose of this TTRPG is, and that's it. It's about discovery. Discovery of this world that kind of creates itself as you go. The GM can make stuff, but also, there's a bunch of tables that'll be provided, a bunch of opportunities to basically lay down the train tracks as you go, in a Minecraft-esque fashion. So, in Discovery, there are four species. Would you like to talk about them? Would you like to meet them? Let's do it. They're called Origins, right? And there are four. Obviously, there's human. They're boring. Also, I did all this art myself. Spent a little while working on that. I'm excited to keep working on that. I got a bunch in the chamber, but yeah. So humans are boring, you know, we know humans. I talked about this a little bit in the world building live stream, so go back and check that out if you want to learn more about just the world itself. But one of the second and probably my favorite species that we've made is the verdin, which sounds a lot like human, but vegetation. I don't know. Basically, they're a fancy version of plant people. Basically, the concept of this world is that there was an event. It was super, advanced. Humans came and also populated this planet. They discovered something called the soul current, which was basically the afterlife turned into energy. And it was around this planet. And long story short, there was an apocalyptic event. We don't know what it is, and it doesn't matter, because all we know is that there are tons of mysteries on the rest of this planet after all this rubble of these hyper advanced civilizations were wiped out. And because of that event, the soul current amplified in how much energy it had, because obviously most everyone on the planet died. And one thing about the soul current is it gives a lot of life, a lot of consciousness, and a lot of power to things. And so in the short 100 years after this apocalyptic event to when the characters will play this, most technology is forgotten or not understood. Most history is a mystery, bars, and a lot of things have gained consciousness, right? One of those is vegetation, and that's why verdin are a thing. There's another image I'd like to show you guys. I'm just scrolling through everything, aren't I? Let me see. There's another verdin right there. They can take different forms. I'm thinking about having... You start off by picking one of these four. You can pick a type you want to be for some of these. Like, this one is oak-born, right? It's got the hardened skin. Or you can be leaf-born, which is like this guy. This handsome devil, which means you have the plant, like the leaves for hair, and you have the green skin. And with that come different perks, right? Kind of like the live stream in FF7. I like a good ancient advanced technology setting. Oh, me too. Me too. Oh yeah, it's such a cool thing when it's like, oh, it's ancient technology. I know Star Wars throws that stuff around sometimes, and it's always cool. Oh yeah, it's sick. But yeah, and you know what? If I went to an alien planet right now and tried to figure out how probably a simple object in their living space worked, it probably seemed like magic to me, right? Try to explain to a caveman how microwaves work or Wi-Fi, right? Like, how am I talking to people through an app right now? He's like, I couldn't explain it, and for that reason, I think it's a fun thing to interact with, because the GM doesn't need to explain how things work. You discover, like, what looks like a rod with something on the end, and when you press it, it starts to rain. Why? I don't know. But it has some high-tech technology that we just don't understand. Pretty sick. But anyway, there is a type of magic, which is the soul current, which is interacting with things like the verdin. They also interact with some things that maybe shouldn't have consciousness, but they do. Like these creatures. I love a robot. I love it. I love Warforged in D&D. Oh, goodness. I can't get enough of it. But yeah, I was thinking about calling them the Mechorian, but it sounds a lot like Metachlorian, you know? Any cooler names would be greatly appreciated right now. If you guys can send any names in the chat or in the comments below if you get to this part, please let me know what I should call these things, because I think they're kind of cool. But yeah, here's another one right here. Here's another mech creature. And here's another Verdant right here. But basically, these rundown, robots that were made, obviously, for the purpose of, this advanced society, have been clanks. Yeah. I should call. Yeah. Just. Yeah. You could be a clanker if you want. It's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I love the whole trend of creating, basically like names for AI. And like people in the comment section of like AI slop videos will just be like, clankers, gotta get rid of them. I think there's a big list of robot synonyms on Wikipedia. Oh, is there? Let's take a look real quick. I love looking up synonyms for words. Let's try to name it real quick. It'll be a fun little exercise. Okay, here we go. Let me show you guys what I'm looking at here. Mech, manbot, roboid. That's kind of lazy, right? Dinobot, replicant, replicant, walker, gymnoid, gastrobot. What? What does that even mean? I could go like something boring like android. Maybe I should just go boring, right? Who appreciates, I don't know. And like fictional robot names like Walker for zombies. Yeah. Something that's like, it kind of represents like what they do. Like a beeper or... Yeah, just, I don't know. We'll come up with something. It'll be sick. But anyway, yeah, a big thing about these guys is that they can be advanced. They can, basically it's a robot that was programmed, but eventually people realize, hey, there's like energy flowing through the air basically. Let's have it run on that instead of these expensive batteries, right? Instead of this hardware. And they find out that basically they created AI, a roundabout way to make AI, because the soul current provides life and consciousness to things. So by using its power, you notice the blue in its eyes and its chest is running on that soul current energy, right? Thus, these robots are sentient and able to be played. Gastrobot must be something food related. Yeah, it sounds like a robot that you don't want to be stuck in an elevator with, right? That's truly a... Oh, by the way, here's a representation of the soul current being used by a sorcerer who is also a Verdant. And these are both sorcerers, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. This robot is clearly using it as well. Pretty sick. Pretty sick. Okay, and I've already shown it a little bit. This is one that I was wanting to talk about this whole time. I've been leading up to it. I think we're calling it Trexin. I don't really know. Something that sounds insecty, but this is it. It is basically an insect-based species. I'm very proud of this drawing here. I think it turned out pretty well. Let me see. But basically, there's a couple things that make this thing interesting. It's not just an insect. And I was on the fence when it comes to making it or not. I've had some people that I've talked to them about it say, no, dude, put that in. It's cool. All right, cool. All right, fine, I'll do it. Basically, it is a insect creature. They're probably going to be smaller than humans. You can see right here the exoskeleton of it. And how they work is they normally have a hive mind. And that's the way they are able to operate. Which can be a very interesting concept. Sorry, I think my YouTube is kind of slowing down. YouTube is not receiving enough video. Okay, I think we're chilling. Okay. If it's a little glitchy, let me know. I'll try to fix it. But I think it's okay right now. I'm not sure. Yeah, please let me know if there's anything. Okay, so basically, sorry, I'm looking at my YouTube is telling me there's a problem. Trying to see if there is. It says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain streaming as such. I don't know how to fix that. I think it's fine. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. Okay. I think we're back. Okay. I think we're back. Okay. But yeah, next up we got the Threxin, which sounds a little bit like some other species that are similar, so I'm probably going to change it to something else, but basically, it is an insect creature species, right? Obviously, from this beautiful art that I worked on. But the cool thing about these guys is, like a lot of insects, it operates with a hive mind, which might sound like an unplayable species, but let me explain. So, most of these things are connected, and basically, they have several bodies, right? But it's all one brain. It's all one character, one NPC in several bodies. And they can become more and more powerful, and these creatures eventually started fighting each other, right? For land. But really, even though it's armies of these creatures fighting, it's just two people, right? That's such a sick concept. Sorry, I gotta get back to work. You are good, twin. Get back to work. I'm sure I'm gonna keep yapping about this for weeks, but appreciate you stopping by. But yeah. Oh yeah. Guess from Mass Effect. I've also been watching Plurbius, which does it so well. Basically, it's just about like what if the world was invaded by a hive mind-esque entity, and it's so sick. But yeah, appreciate you, twin. So yeah, this takes away that moral ambiguity that you would normally get, because a lot of people think that these creatures are evil. No. The creatures aren't evil. The one character is evil, right? There only needs to be one evil person in 1,000 bodies of this Threxin. You might run into him on the road. You can recognize, like, uh-oh, it's that guy in those 3 bodies. They attack you. You can kill them with 0 guilt, right? So let's go back to our little points here. Let me adjust this. There is no evil species. There's just an evil character, but still gives you the pros. There's a constant villain and threat, and there's gore without guilt. But if you make it an evil character and not an evil species, it solves this problem, because that species now becomes playable, right? And you don't have to worry about possibly messing up the your character by making it a inherently evil creature, because it's not. It's just a creature, and one of them or several of them are evil. I think that this is a great way to avoid that type of controversy, while at the same time reaping the benefits that something like an evil species would give you. So those are my thoughts. If you were to be one of these in the game, there are certain things you need to come up with as far as its backstory, like why doesn't it have a hive? You know, where has something happened to the rest of its bodies to make it so he's the last one? Well, maybe they were part of one, but they were born with a separate mind, so they're kind of like almost a freak of nature in their case. You know, like, why does he have a separate consciousness? That should not happen. So he was outcast. I don't know. There's a lot of cool things you can do there, and a lot of interesting things. And also, eventually, you can gain those abilities or gain the, what am I trying to say? Gain the ability or gain the, wow, I need some more caffeine. Eventually, you can gain the ability to increase your hive mind, maybe. Like, maybe you find someone, like, I think it's even a, oh yeah, look at this. Oh, by the way, these abilities are all going to be changed, so don't worry about that if you see something you don't like or are confused by something. These were just what I was working with a couple months ago. But one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is have basically a psychic battle over control over a certain creature, another one of its kind, basically trying to gain dominance over its mind and join it into your hive. That is a fun and cool aspect of the game that I think would be very interesting, because if, let's say, like, one of these things was guarding a gate, well, instead of going out and trying to convince it to let you through, you can just basically inhabit its body temporarily, you know? I don't know, there's a lot of cool opportunities there, and those are the 4 species that I came up with that we're working with so far. Personally, I think that there's enough versatility to satisfy a player, and there's going to be enough customizability so that every time you pick a species, you can make it unique in itself. You know? Human will have its own perks, the verdant, the plant-based people, the metal people, and the basically the insect people. The way we're going about it is humans came here to this planet hundreds of years ago, or 150 or 100, yeah, around that. Over 100 years ago, the verdant were created after the apocalypse. The robots were brought here by the humans and basically became their own people because they gained consciousness, and they no longer, obviously the humans weren't using them because they were all killed. And the Threxan or the insect people will be the people that have always lived there, right? And they burrowed underground while this apocalypse was happening to avoid being killed off. But they are the natives of this planet. I think that this could be a really cool thing. And I might be biased, but I've just been inspired by a lot of different types of media and a lot of different ways that TTRPGs go about it. I like the idea of really honing in on just a few species, trying to make them the best I possibly can for these players, so that no matter what they pick, they will enjoy it. They won't look back over their shoulder and be like, ah, man, I should have picked this because it's almost the same as this, but it's better in this way. No. They're all completely different, but all very customizable by the player. So that's really all I got today. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this discussion, and that we are able to continue creating and being creative. Please go check out my other videos on my channel, and I'm just trying to, these lives are just for me to document my creation and my progress, and hopefully get people on board with this game that I'm working on. because I do care a lot about it, and I've worked really hard for a long time, and I really want people to be able to have the opportunity to have their voice heard along the process. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of cool ideas I know that you guys have that I would never find if it wasn't for this type of media. So I really hope that people take advantage of that in the future and are able to interact in that way. But for now, I'm logging off. And I'm going to record an episode of Dicecast, which, by the way, Dicecast is a one-shot podcast style channel that me and one of my best friends, every single week, every Friday, we post a video of us playing a one-shot of a new TTRPG, or maybe trying out a crazy storyline, or doing something interesting, and we just make jokes pretty much the whole time, and we're having a great time. Just a couple dudes being bros, goofing around, rolling some dice, having a good time. So please go check that out. The link is in the description of this stream right now. But yeah, as of now, we just had an episode where the character is trying to survive Black Friday, and it's a lot of fun. So go check that out. All right, well, that's it for now, guys. Take care.